our moderator today, Lele from Kite, and she is going to introduce the rest of the panel and start our discussion.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It's really exciting to be at Denver again. I'm Lele. I'm VP and head of BD at Kite. We are focused on being an AI payments blockchain and focused on the agentic native infrastructure for the agent economy. So I'm really excited to have some of the top investors in the AI space with me today. So why don't we go down the list, and if you guys could introduce yourself, where you work, and also tell us a fun fact.
Oh, fun facts. Okay. Hey everyone, can you guys hear me? Cool. It's Bryan, a principal at Alumni Ventures. We are one of the most active VC in the world, invested over 1,500 companies. My focus is AI and blockchain. We're also one of investors back to Kite AI. My fun fact is that I'm currently building an open cloud agent to help me document all the interactions I have with this week at ETHDenver. So maybe by the end of this week, my AI agent knows more people than I do.
Hi, thanks for having me. Alan Du, I'm a partner at M12, which is Microsoft's venture fund. We're not a current investor in Kite AI, but a little bit of history. I spent the last 6 years working at PayPal Ventures, where I did lead Kite AI Series A. And it's great to see the growth of Kite AI over the years. And fun fact, I used to work with Bryan here at PayPal.
PayPal Mafia.
Hello everyone, Patrick. I run a fund called Dispersion Capital, and it's a fund that's exclusively focused on decentralized infrastructure. So that being said, our biggest thesis that we had was that edge computing and blockchain were going to converge and empower decentralized AI. We were pitching this 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's really come about. But background on me, 20-year VC, exclusively always focused on infrastructure, mostly developer facing. But yeah, no, was one of the very first investors in Kite AI, but before that, predecessor ZetaBlock. So excited to see the growth and the progress here. I guess fun fact about me, and actually probably maybe actually relevant for all crypto, is I was subpoenaed by the DOJ to kind of go against Google. I was supposed to testify against Google's antitrust case. So it was fun, and I actually went on the case after Satya Nadella. So that was my little claim to fame.
Wow, okay, I didn't know most of those fun facts. All right, so let's get started. As investors, as you guys look to deploy capital in the AI sector, are there specific verticals or parts of the stack that you're really excited about and increasingly focused on?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, I can start. Overall, in the agentic commerce space, where you guys have been hearing a lot of talking about this recently, specifically in this space, I really get excited about the human-to-agent interface. So more specifically, how does AI agent understand the dynamic human attention? I will give you an example. So let's say I want to buy a flight ticket. I tell my AI agent to buy an economy class ticket to LA under $100. And my agent goes online, find a ticket for $98, and then bought it, job done. But what if, in reality, in the world, the first class ticket was actually sold at $105? So if I were browsing myself, I would definitely buy the first class because it's only $5 more over my budget. Great deal. But my AI agent won't do that because it will follow my instruction under $100. So it gets the job done, but does it really fulfill my needs, like my intent? Not really. So I think the problem is that in the future, when we have AI agents doing purchasing behaviors on behalf of human, we need a dynamic authorization. AI agents need to operate autonomously within the programmable boundaries. So that's an area I'm really excited to see what companies are building around that.
Yeah, I would say Microsoft, given kind of, we're a relatively large company, we do a lot of different stuff. The investment horizon or spectrum, if you will, is quite wide. We can do things from down to the hardware level, looking at new chips, and all the way up to things like quantum computing, but and also everything in between. What I would say where I'm spending most of my time on is these days you can't really hear a conversation without hearing OpenClaw or agents this and AI that. As people are beginning to deploy more and more agents, right now, Bryan referred to the human agent interface, but what we're where we're spending time is that in the future, more and more agents are going to be interacting with one another. So how do you build trust between agents, right? In a trusted environment, it's easy, right? It's really easy to have that agent trust handshake. However, if you have agents that are now going to be transacting with multiple parties or multiple relatively unknown parties, how do you establish that trust? So agent identity is an area that we're paying very close attention to, and I do think the current identity infrastructure is very much human-centric, using a lot of delegated credentials. However, there is no agent native identity infra, I guess, until Kite came along, introduced the agent passport. But the other part is, well, when the whole market seems to be kind of getting a little nervous around what agent might do to software companies in general, we're just talking about this off stage. At the end of the day, it's still software that handles the data, handles the security, and it's not going to be that different when agents get deployed to build, a very quick dashboard or build a very quick, small, thin software. At the end of the day, it still needs to be able to access the same data sources securely. So what's happening within the database space is also really exciting to see, because you need to take your data out of the current silos, your Salesforce, and be able to put it in a place where agents can easily access, right? So one interesting area, it's relatively small, but a super interesting area is that, people are now beginning to look at graph database again, because, I think someone really famous said, the world is graph and not tables, right? Yeah. Anyways, those are the two areas where I'm spending time.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, Alan brings up a good point. Areas on what enables AI to flourish. That's something that we kind of look at from an infrastructure standpoint. We've been spending a lot of time looking at what is going to make this like autonomous agent ecosystem actually be autonomous. Alan brought up a good point about like identity. That's one area that we've been looking into, but kind of realized maybe it's like the opposite. Is like we would not invest $1 in identity because we just don't see money being made there. But identity is going to become a big feature that is going to be necessary for agents to be able to transact, to be able to be known, and to be able to do enterprise level stuff. But that being said, we look at the full stack and kind of have to see where we think that technology pieces are going to need to be decentralized and other parts that don't need to be decentralized. So there's areas that we kind of see that is probably like more around like the middleware layer, where you're going to focus around the coordination layer, the programmability component, but that hopefully enables more pieces that enable agent-to-agent interactions. So that they can be fully autonomous. And then, other components that we're really looking into is kind of that what we're talking about on the edge side is on-device AI, where it's going to be smaller models, going to be more efficient. They're going to leverage personal, private data, and be a lot more personalized. So everyone's potentially going to have their own agent on their phone, or maybe even on the edge. So, areas that we've been pretty excited about.
Awesome. Really, really interesting to hear where you guys are focused. So I guess maybe let's shift gears a little, because ETHDenver attracts some of the best developers and founders, and I think many of you guys in the audience are always, looking to potentially raise capital. So as an investor, what kind of advice would you give to founders who are raising capital, or what are the qualities that really stand out for you?
Yeah, happy to start. So I would say it doesn't even matter if it's like an AI founder or not. One of the key things that I personally look for any founder is what kind of problem are they solving, and if they have some sort of unique insight or unfair advantage in solving that problem. And the key thing is being able to articulate that extremely well, but then also having some sort of unique insight into why. Because it might sound very abstract, but having like lived problems is one of the best ways to be that expert in solving that problem. So as a VC, and I don't know about these guys here, but when we hear stories from entrepreneurs that are saying like, hey, I worked at this company, I internally realized that something was very difficult, and I built this in-house, and I realized that more companies will need this product. I'm going to leave this company and build a whole company solving this problem that I built in-house. That's like music to my ears, and that's something that we look for first and foremost before investing in anything.
My advice is be an efficient storyteller. Now with AI, building things are getting easier than ever. So that means more competition, more pitch decks, more noises. Those founders who can be remembered by people are those who can tell a good story, who can just talk less and highlight the unique advantages. So I think if a VC cannot explain what does your company do during the IC, maybe the pitch doesn't land. So my advice is talk short, highlight your unique advantage, and try to make people remember you. And the VC startup ecosystem is still based on attention economy. So you're gonna try to grab that attention and make yourself under the spotlight. That helps.
Yeah, I think the 2 points covered are really, really great points. Maybe I'll add another one for companies that are a little bit further along. Within AI specifically, we've seen a lot of very good technical founders, doing product-led growth strategy. But the issue is you got to understand how to sell to enterprise, right? Yeah. And this is coming from someone who works at one of the largest enterprises in the world. You need to be able to speak enterprise, understand what our problems are. A lot of founders will come in and get super excited about the product they're building or the tech they're building, and they will get stopped midway by our folks, whether it's on the product side or on the investment side, and say, hold on 1 second, you haven't spent a single second asking me what my problems are, right? So focus on the problem set, kind of relates back to Patrick's point, but understand how that process might work, whether it's through hiring people who have worked within go-to-market organizations or talking to a lot of enterprises. Just understanding what that procurement cycle looks like is important.
Awesome. All right, let's go deeper into each of your firms. So, Bryan, Alumni Ventures was recently ranked top 20 by Time, and one of the most active VCs. I would love to know, how do you filter out between the signal and the noise? And you mentioned that you've reviewed tons and tons of pitch decks. So, what stands out for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I want to double down on Patrick's point. So we review thousands of deals every month at Alumni Ventures. One filter I really use is called vitamin versus painkiller. Vitamin is nice to have, and painkiller solves the real problem. There are, in the agentic AI world, there are a lot of AI agent companies, early stage startups. What they are building is actually just a wrapper on the foundational model. They create marginal benefit, but that doesn't solve the fundamental problems. And there are other, those are vitamin companies. And there are some other painkiller companies that are solving the problems who can never be solved before. Let's take Kite as an example. They are building agentic payment infrastructure because nowadays, if you are looking forward to see agentic commerce world, today's internet is not going to work. It's not ready for the agentic commerce. So that's why Kite is building a next generation payment rails and network for the agents. I think to me that is a perfect example of a painkiller. So yeah, that's my take.
Awesome, thank you. Patrick, I think you mentioned infrastructure before, and I really think you're one of the most knowledgeable infrastructure investors out there. So if you look at the intersection between blockchain infrastructure and the agentic space, where do you see the natural fit? What kind of excites you, and what are some of the, proudest investments besides Kite that you've invested in?
Yeah, I mean, for us, when we look at infrastructure, I think history repeats itself. So when we first started looking at blockchain, we actually looked at it as an analog to how the internet was built and how traditional stack was kind of created. And we looked at how all the missing pieces that were there. And simple things like DNS, like the basic networking phases that blockchain suffered through, and still suffering through. That is now finally being solved with some scalability issues. But now when we look at AI and the agentic side, it's almost also repeating itself as well, because the agent side is pretty light at the moment. And it's almost, sure, there's a lot of infrastructure around it, but it's almost as if it's its own, it acts as an application. So you need other components of infrastructure that it's going to have to leverage. So we kind of, I don't want to like talk about the same things, but you need certain components from like the compute, the data, the identity side. There's so many like basic needs that it's still piggybacking off of. But yeah, that's something that we kind of looked at. It's like, how do these products kind of relate to something that has already happened, and how do you make these more efficient? So when you quantize these models and make them super efficient and put them on device, how are they going to manage like potentially keys, and how are you going to do like very simple basic stuff that has already happened from like the TLSs as well? So that's kind of how we view it.
Ellen, Microsoft has a extensive end-to-end strategy in AI, and has made a ton of announcements and a lot of updates on Copilot, Azure, and many other areas. So I guess sitting from M12, how do you think about some of the synergies, or how do you think about where to deploy capital?
Yeah, I would say, this is sort of an advantage to corporate VCs or strategics, as we call them ourselves. You have this massive commercial muscle, right? This massive machine that you're very close to, and you're witnessing firsthand what's being built, what's being used, and you also hear firsthand all the complaints, right? So we're very aware where the gaps are, and I would say that allows us to focus. Be laser focused on solving immediate problems that are very, very tough for developers. For example, we're spending a lot of time looking at coding agent platforms. A lot of folks always point to sort of Clock Code as the gold standard, but there's also a growing community around open source platforms like OpenHands, Augment, Open Code, and etc. Right? So it's important to be aware of why developers are choosing to go with one platform over the other, and how we can improve ourselves. And it also allows us to really kind of deploy capital early on, right? To be able to get that signal very early on. So another one is, as we witness a lot of folks, whether it's within Microsoft or the broader tech community, begin to really tinker around this open Claude thing. We're like, okay, while agent economy or agent workflow is coming faster, or getting here sooner than we all thought, well, we better figure out security around that stuff. We better figure out identity infrastructure around that stuff. So that allows us to really stay focused on, okay, who in the current startup community are building toward that. One of the things that I mentioned earlier, a lot of the agentic identity solutions are built around human-centric identity infrastructure, and kind of building an extension of that. But as we think about what really constitutes an agent identity, if it's purely native, it shouldn't be attached to an email and a login. That's just not going to scale and work in the long run. So agent identity needs to come from something else, and we do believe that comes from persistent memory and the context that the agent accumulates, and it has to be a living thing. Which is why that also leads us to look at blockchain-based solutions that actually offers distinct advantages to actually maintaining that immutable identity history, and not only something they can read but also write, as the agent continues to perform work and accumulate more context and memory. So that's some things that we're able to see from just being part of a larger organization that touches a lot of products.
This is why Edge is going to be important too, because you're going to need dedicated resources for these agents.
Right on.
Ellen, you mentioned agent security, Open Claude. I think that's a huge, huge focus and topic out there. Recently, the Pentagon, there was news at the Pentagon called Claude a national security threat. And then Anthropic's AI security researcher also recently resigned. And of course, like OpenClaw has gone viral, but there's been a ton of security breaches. So as we scale the agentic economy, I think agent security is a huge focus. So as investors, I guess how do you think about the companies that you're looking for to invest in that can really help build AI in a safe and secure manner?
So is that?
Oh, anyone, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think this is a fair concern. Not only on AI agent, but overall AI. My Gemini and Cloud already knows about me much more than most of my friends do. So the question, I think, is not about whether to have AI know more about you. They already do. They already have a lot of personal context. The question is how to have AI agent get a good control over the context. Who can control the context and who have access to it. So I think this is a governance problem, this is an audit and observability problems. So I'm really looking forward to see what our startups are building AI observability, like observability layer, so that they can enable a good control in the overall AI agents.
Yeah, something we're also looking for is, if you're building AI for the enterprise, we hope that you have worked at an enterprise before, or at least being close enough to it to understand, it's more than just deploy an agent on your Mac Mini and be able to just go shop for birthday party supplies, right? You're touching very sensitive data. You're touching things that can cause catastrophic failures, right? So having worked at these places where having been close enough to these products really elevates you as a founder above all else.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues right now, especially is mostly around the enterprise side, because with AI, it's all about data. And individual user data, your data, my data, individually, it's all worthless. But as an aggregate, it's worth a significant amount of money. And then for enterprise, this is their most crown jewel. This is like their golden goose. And this is why a lot of times enterprises can't work with cloud-based AI models. So they have to host their own, they have to contain all their data. But this is the biggest risk is, where does all this data go? Who's training on this data? And especially with the consumerization of AI, where the employees of these enterprises are, going around systems, leveraging AI, putting in their own company data into the AIs, and then being fed into generalized AI. This is like a huge risk. This is like some of those security vulnerabilities. And that's why privacy is becoming a major issue and a major talking point at the moment. But it's kind of funny because I used to work at Samsung, and they banned the ChatGPT like when they first came out because the semiconductor teams were putting in proprietary chip designs into ChatGPT and asking it, for advice, stuff like that. And all of that got trained on, the master AI, and then the information that I learned from there was being distributed out to competitors, to open, everything. So it was a massive, giant data leak. So yeah, it's a huge security issue right now.
All right, I think we're pretty much at time. So maybe last point. What would you like to leave the audience with? Like, where do you see the AI economy in 2 years?
Sure. This is a good question because in the past 2 decades, we have been living in attention economy for a while. And now we do see a rise of intention economy. So what does it mean? Attention economy is basically all the brands try to interrupt you, influence you, get in front of you. You see the ad 7 times, you will buy the product. But this is not exactly what you want. This is what was marketed for you. Now with agentic commerce coming, there's an intention economy. This is completely different. It starts with your agents try to understand what you want, understand your intent. and then it goes outbound to talk to all the vendors in the world and try to compare all the offers, then find the best product for you, then bring it back. I think this is a completely different kind of commerce logic, and maybe advertising will not disappear, but when we look at advertising and discovery layers of all the e-commerce and branding and search, they will be rebuilt for this new kind of economy to optimize for agent-to-agent negotiation instead of human attention capture. So this is very exciting.
I would say, given the audience and the conference we're at, Web 2, Web 3 has always been kind of two separate worlds before. Maybe what I hope to see is that sort of the blending of the two worlds, right? Instead of thinking, like if you're a builder in Web 3, doing something related to blockchain, maybe kind of figure out where that fits in the rest of that world, right? Fits into the broader AI wave, rather than trying to build in a sort of a separate environment.
I would say, yeah, build cool stuff that needs to be solved, and take my money.
Nice.
All right, cool. Thank you, guys.